So you're thinking about running some Vittoria trail tires or gravity tires, but you don't know which tire to run. Well, I'm here to help you out with that. I've ridden every trail and gravity tire from Vittoria over the last couple of years, and I'm going to let you know today which tire works the best where and which tire you should probably avoid in a certain condition. I'm going to break this video down in a couple parts. First, I'm going to show you every tire, just a quick overview of each tire. And on the second part, I'm going to go over and let you guys know which tire combinations I prefer in which conditions. I will have chapters which each tire, and I will have chapters which each condition, where you can see what tire I prefer in those conditions. But I would still recommend watching the video all the way through, because the tire you need might not be the tire you think you need. So stay tuned. Let's get on with it. So, first tire we're going to start off with is the Agarro. This tire is Vittoria's dedicated trail tire. It comes in the trail carcass. It also comes in the e-bike carcass. I use it as a dedicated rear tire on two of my bikes, on both of my Bio bikes, or acoustic bikes if you will. The tread pattern on it is very small. Each tread has a little siping. The leading treads have a step to aid in rolling resistance, or the lack thereof. This tire rolls really, really fast. There's no real transition. It always has grip across the whole tread. But the only thing I wish Vittoria would do with this tire is offer it in an enduro carcass. So the next tire we're going to talk about, we're just kind of moving up in the scale, is the Martello. This tire, as you see, has kind of moto blocks. They're big square blocks. They're only of a medium height, and they have siping running longitudinal and lateral. This tire really excels in dry conditions. I actually really enjoy this tire also as a front tire and maybe even a rear tire when it's dry or it's loose over hard pack. This tire also rolls really well, and it's available in trail and enduro carcass, and I believe they even have it in an enduro race carcass now. This is the Mazza. The Mazza is Vittoria's most popular tire. I would compare this tire to kind of a mix between the DHF and the DHR. It has very large blocks all the way down the center, has this gap in between, but very large side blocks. This little gap in between, a lot of people like that. It provides a little bit of a slip as you roll over, as you roll the tire over and get it over under those cornering knobs. I'm not actually a fan of that on the e-bike, but I run this tire as a front tire on my hardtail because I ride that bike much more aggressively. I lean it faster over into corners so that little bit of a dead zone doesn't bother me. Definitely their most popular tire. I see these tires, if anybody's running Vittoria tires, they're usually running this front and back. Now let's move on to that mud tire. This is the Mota. Actually stands for mud too in Italian, but this is their true motorcycle tire, if you will. This is a cut spike tire, or as close as you can get to it. This tire has some pretty tall blocks in the center with some longitudinal lateral siping. The spacings, as you see, there's 3 different spacings on the tread blocks. This tire is truly a mud tire, but I also run it in the bike park because running as a front tire or rear tire in the bike park is really good when it's really loose or really gnarly. Some big chunky rocks, big chunky roots with some loose dirt around them. It also grips really well. And when you put on the brakes with these, it's like throwing an anchor out the back. These tires brake like crazy. Rolling resistance, yeah, it's pretty rough on these. They don't roll that well. And yeah, that's the Mota. Now we're going to move on to the new tire in the lineup. This is the Mostro. It stands for monster. I actually did a whole review on this tire. When it came out, I really liked this tire. This tire they actually place between the mud tire, the Mota, and the Mazza. And it basically looks like an overgrown Agarro. And it pretty much rides like an overgrown Agarro. Right now they only have it available in this 29 2.4. It was rumored that they'd have it in the 29 2.6 by the end of the year, but it's the new year and we still haven't seen it. And there's supposed to be 27.5 versions coming out too. This tire, yeah, it has a lot of siping and it grips on pretty much everything. But it does sacrifice it on the rolling resistance. It doesn't roll as well as, say, the Mazza or the Martello. The blocks, they're not as tall as the Mota. They're actually a little bit shorter than the Mazza. They're only like a medium height, but the side blocks are gigantic. And there's none of that transition, none of that little bit of dead space when you roll this tire over into the corners. It always has grip. And it deforms really well on anything small on the trail, on rocks, roots, even when it's wet. Unless it packs up with mud, this tire has grip. It has grip like crazy. This is my go-to tire right now on the front of the e-bike. I love this tire. I'm going to make my first recommendation for, I guess we'll call him the weekend warrior trail rider. He goes out in the nice weather, rides mostly single track and some gravel roads to get there. So he's not too overly aggressive. He's not pushing his bike too hard. For that combination, I'm going to go with the Martello up front. Really good front tire for that. Loves the dry hard pack. Also when it's a little dusty or dirty, thin layer of dirt on top of the hard pack. It grips really good as a front tire and there's no transition. It does pretty good on rocks and roots. Not the best, but it can hold its own. For a rear tire in those conditions, or for that person, I'd recommend the Agarro. As I said, this is on both of my acoustic bikes, my go-to rear tire most of the time. Unless it's really muddy like it is now in the winter, I pretty much keep this tire on the back. Even in the bike park, I've had this tire on once in the back, and it actually impressed me. It does pretty good. Rolls really well, provides a lot of grip in most conditions, unless the loose dirt gets too deep or it gets muddy, then it packs up pretty fast. But yeah, if you're just the weekend warrior, just the tire combination you want to go with. So the next person we're going to talk about is that guy goes out a little bit more often, rides some pretty decent trails, some reds, dipping into the blacks, and still isn't that safe on his bike, but is looking for the grip, and is also looking for really good rolling ability, either on your acoustic bike or on an e-bike. I am going to recommend Vittoria's new tire for up front, because this tire grips everywhere. You don't have to run it in this enduro race carcass. You can run it in a normal enduro carcass, has plenty of grip. If you want the ultimate grip up front, go with the enduro race, but you are going to suffer a little bit with rolling resistance. It rolls a little worse, and it's a little heavier, so it takes you longer to get it spun up. For a back tire for that person, I'm going to recommend the Martello. I found this tire also works really good as a rear tire, not just a front tire. It rolls really well, has grip in most conditions, and it's very predictable. When it does lose grip in the rear, you can pretty much read it a little earlier than if you're running, say, the Mazda on the back. But if you're that really aggressive guy and you really like to push it on the trails and you're not afraid to dump it over really fast into a corner, I don't know. I'm going to say you can run the Mazda up front. I run this tire up front on the hardtail because I ride that bike more aggressively than my e-bike and even my trail fully. And that dead zone, that transition over onto the corner knobs, it doesn't really bother me up the front on that bike. On the heavier e-bike, or if you still ride, like you're dipping into the blacks and double blacks, but you don't like to get it over on the corner knobs that fast, or you don't like that dead space feeling, go with this up front. You can't go wrong. Really good, the Mostro. Really good tire up front. Out back though, for the really aggressive and for running the black trails and stuff, this is also my go-to rear tire. I really like this tire out back on those trails. That dead zone on the back actually allows that back of the bike to break out a little bit. It's a little less predictable than running the Martello out back, but it lets you, I'd say, steer with the back of the bike a little bit more in conditions where you need to, like really tight hairpins where you need to get the back around a little faster and you don't want to pick up your rear tire. You can get this leaned over and slide it a little bit. Just push it with your hips. and it'll get a little jiggy for you if you want it. So really good combination. If you're an aggressive trail rider, either double Mazza or Mostro up front, Mazza out back. So now let's talk about the bike park. If you spend a lot of time at the bike park, well, I might get a little slack for this one, but I think the best front tire for the bike park is the Mota. It's the mud tire. This tire grips everywhere. It actually rolls slow, but it wears long. It lasts pretty long, especially as a front tire. The only downside is it can feel a little dead in the corners on flow trails and stuff if you're riding pretty much just flow trails and really fast flow trails. I wouldn't recommend this tire up front in the bike park because it can feel a little dead because the blocks start to give a little bit and mush a little bit. And on the back, run the Mazza. The Mazda is a really good back tire, especially in the bike park. If you're looking for longer life, though, in the bike park, and you're willing to give up a little bit of grip, and you want a little bit more predictability, go with that Martello. The Martello back is also really good in the bike park. It's also the longest wearing tire. It lasts the longest of any Vittoria tire I've tried. The things just last forever. And if you're really hard on your tires and you don't want to buy a tire every single day you go to the bike park, try the Martello out back. It has a lot of grip, not as much grip as, say, the Mazza, but it'll last you a lot longer. So the last condition is mud. For mud, yeah, it's a no-brainer. That's a Mota, front and back. Run the Mota 2.6 up front and the 2.4 out back if you like a little less traction in the back, or run this tire in that Enduro race carcass up front and the normal carcass out back. If it's really, really muddy, I mean, you can run the Enduro race carcass front and back, but if you're pedaling your bike, you're going to be hurting. It's going to be eating watts. But the Vittoria Mota is a really good mud tire. It's one of the better mud tires I found. So if it's muddy, just pick yourself up a pair and roll with these. I hope if you're interested in Vittoria tires, I was able to help you out a little bit with your choice. These are all my personal opinions on the tires, but I have run every single tire on every position on the bike, and I think in every carcass except the e-bike carcass now. E-bike carcass I haven't run on a couple of tires, but you know, I'm not made out of money, so I gotta buy all these tires myself. If you want to know more about the carcasses, each carcass, the trail, the Enduro, and the Enduro race carcass, just hit me up in the comments down below and I will get a video up explaining more in depth each carcass. I think the website explains it really well, but if you want, I'll do a video on that too. Next video I got coming up, I got some braking videos coming up. I got the China brakes installed on the hardtail, been putting some kilometers on that, and we'll get a initial thought review or initial thought video coming out as soon as I can. And then we got a new bike. I picked up a new e-bike, getting that broken and set up. You'll see more of that on the channel. Might do a video of covering that later on and the changes I made to it to personalize it to me and just show you guys what it is. So far, I'm pretty happy with it, so we'll see. And yeah, that's about it. If you guys got any critiques or you want anything else on the channel that I haven't mentioned or that you haven't seen, just hit me up in the comments. Let me know what you guys want to see, and I'll see if I can get it out to you guys. That's all I got. Never stop shredding. Dave out. Vittoria tires are rumored with their 4C, with their graphene, to be able to roll a little bit better than the competition. That's actually why I switched over to Vittoria tires a couple years ago, because with my weak ticker, I was looking for a little advantage in rolling resistance. I can tell you, they do roll a little bit better if you compare them with the same tread pattern. The only downside I found with the Vittoria tires is they're heavy. They're heavier than the competition, a couple 100 grams each tire. And for the widths, a 2.6 Vittoria tire has about the same width as a 2.5 tire from Maxxis. They're a little bit skinnier than most of the other brands. I'd compare the widths pretty much to Schwalbe. It's about the same. And Yeah, that's a little background on Vittoria.